Hi, Dr. Flynn. Thank you so much for coming on Thrival Nutrition Podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm looking forward to sharing some really unique information with your audience today.
Yes. First, go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
It's kind of a neat story. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn. I started the Wellness Way, which is a national and soon to be an international brand of clinics all through the country based on some very different concepts in healthcare. But my history came from a simple aspect of being a sick child to where, it led me into the realm of health. And then all of a sudden, going through my education and schooling, before I ended up with school, I actually met my beautiful wife. And for people that have seen my book that way, they see, for example, the story of where she was told all of her female hormone problems and stuff that she had, that she could never have children. Well, fast forward today, we have 4 beautiful daughters. So that whole perspective on health and hormones and menopause and all things that I believe women are not taught properly. I even believe today I'm going to share some things with you and your body that most women are never taught. And it's so sad they're not taught, so they don't know how to take care of themselves. And that's why there's so many misconceptions, especially in female care today. And I got a little surprise for you.
Oh.
I'm not a female. Okay. I know. And it's really funny because I've had women say, well, doc, you're not a female, no, but I'll tell you this, is I've never experienced what a woman's gone through with a cycle or menopause or menstruation, stuff like that. But how it's taught today that most female doctors are teaching women wrong. And if we look at today, I've been doing this for 20 years. And guess what? Over the last 20 years, over the last 50 years, female healthcare has only gotten worse. There's more cancer, more heart disease, more fertility problems, more PCOS, more bad PMS ever in history, yet we have more medical technology and treatments both medically and naturally than ever in history, and women are sicker than ever.
I agree with that so much. I'm so glad you brought that up too.
Yep.
It's very interesting to see how far we've come with just technology and then how far we've gone backwards with our health. So I know menopause is going to be what we're talking about today. And I know that, like you said, there's so many misconceptions about menopause and there's a stigma about it. And so I read your chapter in your book talking about your view of menopause versus how menopause can be so negative. So can you talk more about that?
Well, if you think of it this way, every woman hopes to live the longest life possible. Okay. And obviously want that to be the healthiest life possible, but just even to get to be, 80 years old, 90 years old is a goal of everybody that way. Okay. So, but during that process, as a young lady, you transition into being a cyclic young woman. Now you have you go through that period where you have menstruation, all stuff of that for, anywhere from, 35 to 40 years that way, based on how long you go through it that way. And then if you do get that to the point where you live long enough, you transition into this thing that's called menopause. Well, when you speak to a woman in general and you say the word menopause, it has a very negative connotation to it that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm here to tell you today, and this is never taught, and I'll prove it to you scientifically, and I've done it clinically for 20 years, is it's much easier to keep a woman healthier in menopause than it ever is during that cyclic period, okay, which is not taught. And see, and you say, well, doc, how can you say that? Well, I say, listen, if you do live to the average age of in your 50s that way, every woman, if they live long enough, is going to transition into the God-given process called menopause. It's not a disease. It's not a condition, even though it's treated like that. And even though women will tell me devastating stories where I say, doc, I almost was even suicidal when I was going through that. I don't disagree with that. But that's not menopause. That's an unhealthy woman. You know what I'm saying? So we confuse the transition of the life actually into menopause as something bad. Well, the reason why it's bad is because the questions that we ask as far as women's health, starting when they're a little girl to when they hit puberty, all the way through those cyclic years, they're so darn sick. But by the time they hit menopause, the body's supposed to go through a hormonal transition and it can't do it properly. So it's living hell for most women today.
I love that. I know. I love that. Keep preaching. Keep going.
Well, what I want you to think about is this, okay? If you look, for example, you say, well, doc, well, I totally disagree with you. How can you possibly say it's much easier to keep a woman healthy during menopause than it is when they're cyclic? Well, here, let's do this. So let's go through a little bit of different way of thinking, okay? Now I'm going to start here. I believe that almost every current form of viewing women's healthcare is devastating because it's very incomplete. Now, let me ask you a question. I got a simple question for you. Have you ever watched a movie, or watching TV and saw a preview for a movie and actually go, hey, honey, this looks like a pretty good movie, let's go. And you go to the movie and you see the whole complete picture and like, honey, that sucked. You see? We've all been through that, all right? Because why? We took a small clip of what the whole total movie is supposed to look like, and we were kind of, you know, we couldn't get the full picture, so we went to the full picture, we're like, oh my goodness, it was horrible, okay? Now, on the flip side, it could have been a great movie. But here's my point. That right there is how we actually look at women's healthcare and how we test their bodies. For example, okay, I know a lot about you now after checking it out that way, but I don't know how old are you. How old are you now?
I'm 26.
Okay, now I'm going to prove to you in 1 minute and all of your listeners that you, as a healthy clinical nutritionist that has a background, has not had good female hormone care yet. Do you think I can prove that to you?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So if you look at me as a man, the number one hormone, now I have the same hormones you do, we're just at different levels when we hit puberty, okay? As a man, you know this, okay? What hormone dictates a man's life?
Testosterone.
That's right. It dictates heart disease, cancer, erections, energy levels. My testosterone levels are phenomenal. I'm at 44 years old, okay? Now here's that, and I've had them tested since I was young, okay? Now imagine this. So let's now move into that cyclic woman wise, and then we're gonna get to menopause that way, is you as a 26-year-old young lady, all right? What hormone really dominates your life?
Progesterone.
Oh, I lost you. What was that?
Progesterone and estrogen.
Okay, but which is the main one though? Pick one of those. Which is the main one?
Estrogen?
That's right, estrogen. Now, I'm here to tell you that estrogen is not a hormone. Not
Interesting.
A hormone. Okay, estrogen is a term to describe 10 very chemically similar hormones. So, it dictates your life. If your estrogen, certain estrogens go too high, you can have breast cancer. That's why if you ever look at a woman that has breast cancer, they put them on an estrogen-lowering drug. Vice versa. If you don't have enough estrogens, osteoporosis, depression, every other condition on the planet. So I got a simple question for you. Okay, now let's say when you hit puberty, it was roughly 13, 14, 15 years old. Okay, so my question is, estrogens, those 10 estrogens dictate your life. How many times have you had those 10 estrogens measured? I can already answer the question for you.
I mean, and I'm more functional, so I kind of test my levels, but I only even test E1, E2, E3, so not even all 10.
Exactly. So your view of your own human body is incomplete. You took a small snapshot and assuming the rest of them that way. Okay? Right. So now that hormone estrogen, so that's why I can tell you right now, if a woman has not had both a urine and blood test done together, their hormone testing is incomplete. That right away can change the direction of women's healthcare because now they can see a complete picture of their body. That's why I give the analogy of the movie. Now, let's go into menopause. So now all those transitions, all those estrogens, all those, the progesterone. So remember, estrogen isn't a hormone. Estrogen is a name for 10 different estrogens. Do you follow me in that?
Yes.
So that is going to change a woman's thinking right there because once again, there's some estrogens that if they go elevated can cause cancer. There's some estrogens, for example, that protect against cancer, and you want some sometimes to be high, okay? But we don't test those things. We don't test those from young ladies from when before they have puberty through it that way, and it's why women have so much PMS. It's why women have so many psychological things, even at a young age that way. But here's where it gets kind of cool. So let's say that those 10 are not taken care of properly from the time that you're cyclic till you hit menopause. Now, guess what happens? The ovaries start to diminish some of its production. Not all of it. That's why I kind of laugh when people say the ovaries stop. That's not true. It's just that the adrenals and other tissue can start to now produce some hormones. They take over. And then if your estrogens are bad when you're cyclic, what happens when these women hit menopause?
Yeah. Just continue
the cycle of stupidness, which is what? Which is the fact that you don't know where they're at. You transition to this time to where there's supposed to be a different organ system now taking over the production that way, which, for example, they didn't even know because they've never measured for 50 years. The average cycle or menopause time is around 50, 51. And so now they go into menopause and things are more devastatingly wrong, even though there's no more cycle. And now their hormones are like a guy's, they're straight across and they're at one level and they're easy to stay that way. And which why a man having straight across hormones all the time is much easier to keep healthy than a cyclic woman that goes up and down every week. See, a woman's hormones change roughly 4 times in a week when they're cyclic. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I got a funny thing for you. Did you know, young lady, that you're 4 different women every single month?
Yes. Well,
see?
I can say 2.
Yes. You see it? You see what I'm saying?
Ovulation and before my period.
That's right. See, your body transitions hormonally 4 times in a month. When you're in menopause, it's just like a guy. They're straight across. So, and if a woman can get decent production, her levels can be beautiful. She can live life very, you know, if you look at what Mayo Clinics, they changed their definition because I've been preaching it for years, is remember, in menopause, you can say sexual, vital, and healthy. That's not what people view menopause as. They view it as a devastating, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have vaginal dryness, hot flashes, I'm gonna have osteoporosis. No, if you go through those things, that's not menopause. That's a sick woman. Because as we start to get their levels back to normal and get their hormones back to normal, all those symptoms start to go away. And we didn't get rid of their menopause. We got rid of the things that actually cause that sick body to be sick. Hot flashes and actually vaginal dryness and all these things are not menopause. That's a sick woman.
Yes. And I love what you said too about blood testing, because with blood testing, it only takes such a snapshot of your hormones in that second. And something that's never tested is the metabolism of your estrogen. So your 2-OH, your 4-OH, which is more protective and more, you know, can be more dangerous. And so those are things that like, we just don't even, I would say the average person isn't even looking at, and they're not diving deeper enough of just even how we're using our estrogen inside of our body.
And I get to speak at some of the largest medical conferences in the world. Okay, because even though I'm considered more of a natural doc that way, even though I hate that term, that's not what I call myself. But here's what happens is when I go speak to them, the reason why those other estrogens are not tested for is because there's no current medical therapy for them. And see, that's why they're not there. And see, if you understand, people say, Doc, your testing is so much more extensive, but I can get the testing done by anybody. You're right. I've been preaching for 20 years, and I guarantee that when you're 46 and I'm going to be 64 20 years from now, we're going to be doing the same podcast, and we're going to be talking about the same darn things. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's interesting because, I mean, I've seen amazing changes when people start taking DIM as like a supplement. Granted, it's not, I guess, pharmaceutical, but as a supplement and in food for changing to favor the more protective pathway of 2-OH. So to say that there's no medical, I guess, pharmacy intervention is crazy to me.
Yes. But see, what I want to show for your listeners now, though, is if those pathways aren't tested. So let's say, like I said, so you know this a little bit, okay? I'm extremely impressed because you're a clinical nutritionist, and I do these podcasts for large medical organizations, and most people go, 2-methyl hydroxy, what the heck is that? And see, what happens is this. DIM is only effective if that pathway is deficient, because if it's 4-hydroxy, guess what happens? DIM has no effect on it. But the only way that we can figure out each woman's what their need is we don't guess. What do? We test, but we test completely. And that's what I started to do 20 years ago when that beautiful blonde, my beautiful wife, at 22 years old, they almost took her uterus out. They told her, don't you dare try to have kids, because here's what happens. All the medical interventions, and Durham, she was seeing a natural doctor, taking 10 supplements and getting adjusted and doing all these things, but nobody ever tested her properly. So I came along going, listen, your whole care naturally and medically is incomplete. I ran some labs on her going, there is your pathway, there's your problem. Start to reverse those processes, and her endometriosis, her endomyosis, her cystine, and all the stuff like that went away. Why? Because that's not a healthy body. Yes. And your body wants to be healthy. You're not genetically programmed for disease. Well, no, my grandma had breast cancer and my mom had breast cancer, so I'm genetically programmed for it. No, you're not. Grandma and mom had really stupid habits that caused all your hormones to be bad. And therefore, that's what, if you continue the same pathways and doing the same stupid things, you're going to get breast cancer. It's not genetic. You're genetically programmed for normal hormones.
Yes. I wish we could kind of take that genetic aspect out of it a little bit, because people are so stuck in like, oh, it's in my genes. I'm gonna succumb to that. That's what I'm gonna get. And I'm like, the amount of cancers and certain diseases that genetically are so small. It's the smallest percentage, versus the rest are so influenced by epigenetics, our environment, our diet, our stress levels, exercise. And I wish sometimes we could just take that out of people's heads and be like, stop just blaming it on your genetics, because it's not that.
Well, it's not, it has nothing to do with it. You're genetically programmed for normal. Like right now, you're breathing. Right now, for example, your blood pressure should be a certain rate. It's actually set to a normal state. If you do things to stress out your body, guess what happens? Your body will respond. If you were in this studio with me right now, or any listeners were in the studio right now, and I went to jump on them and attack them, their whole hormonal system is going to change because of a stress, not because of genetics. Your genetics are responding to the stress. That's what they're supposed to do to keep you alive. But guess what happens? So if you develop breast cancer, thank God you did. You know why? Because if you couldn't adapt it to the stress, you already died. So I'm happy you got breast cancer instead of death.
I like it. It's the right view of it. So what do our hormones look like in menopause? So I know we talked about a little bit about it in our cycles and things like that. So I know obviously things start to change. We don't make as much. So what do they look like?
Well, what happens is this, as that transition comes along. So a woman, for example, a lot of women, here's something, if you ever interview another doc that way, ask them where hormones, how they're produced in the ovaries. Well, most doctors can't tell you that, okay? Well, it's because, for example, it's actually all of your ovary is made up of a ton of eggs, okay? And they're primordial. They're immature. And as they mature, they start to produce hormone, and that's how an ovary produces actually a hormone. So that decreases, and that actually process goes away. So the ovary only makes, for example, a very small amount of hormone post-cyclic terms, because you don't need an egg anymore. Second of all, but then your adrenals take over. Your adrenals start to produce about 60% of your hormone production. I will tell you right now, and I have clinically proved this massively. Once again, the number one thing that destroys female hormones, including menopausal hormones, is mental stress. Now, once again, yes, there's stress. Like eating bad is a stress. Having physical trauma is a stress. Doing all these things can be stressful to your body. But clinically, there's nothing that actually hurts a woman's body more than mental stress. Now, for guys, it's actually sugar. Guys' testosterone, for example, unless they've had testicular damage, they convert their testosterone to estrogens. That's why breast cancer is becoming very common in men. That's why they have man boobs. That's why they have menopause. That's why they're more emotional and a bunch of wimpy wusses nowadays instead of a good strong man has good testosterone. It's true. We're a bunch of wusses today. Okay, and that comes from men from sugar. Women, your mental stress is killing you. Now, here's what happens. I got a question for you. Obviously, we know this. Who stresses out more, men or women? Women. What causes women the most stress? Men, by far. You know it's true. If you ever look at what men, so I've gone around and look at the book itself. I've showed women, understand your stressors, because if you do not, that's what will lead to cancer. That is what will lead to hormonal problems that way. And yes, foods are a stressor. I'm anaphylactic to an egg. An egg is such a stressor to my body, it will kill me. Okay? But once again, a lot of people don't have to have anaphylactic responses. I can show you where, when we tested a woman, avocados was a stress to her. Mm-hmm. And no, doc, but you have a master's degree, and avocado is the healthiest food on the planet. Mm-hmm. Not for that woman, it's not.
Yes.
There's no two women that are alike. Without testing, every aspect of female care is incomplete. I don't care about their symptoms. I don't care about their birth control. I don't care about the hormone therapy that way. What has to happen is great testing done on women to actually now be able to figure out what their body needs or doesn't need, or where the stress is coming from, because then you'll have complete hormone balance.
Yes. And so I know you mentioned a little just birth control. Can you talk to us a little bit about treatments? So I know that birth control is a major one. I don't always agree with that. But the common,
ever.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
So the common treatments of hormones conventionally, and then going into what we can do, so that's more natural. So herbs and obviously testing, nutrient status, things like that.
So let's start here. Let's look at the medical perspective. Because they actually have nothing to get something back to normal, they can only react pharmaceutically. Okay? Well, a young lady has PMS. Okay, now guess what? If you look up the definition of birth control, it's classified as an endocrine disruptor. Let me say that again. In the world of medicine, it's classified as an endocrine disruptor. Not an endocrine balancer, not a thing to make you normal. It's an endocrine disruptor. That's why some of the major side effects is what? Cancer and actually infertility. Who said? It's on your packet. Go read it. Okay? Mm-hmm. So now when a woman, that's all they really have for hormone therapy for women today is birth control through the process. And we accept that as Good.
Yes.
We accept that they're smart. No, they're a bunch of morons. They're actually causing cancer and infertility. And if you go to an OB for your female health care, you will be sick just like everybody else. Prove me wrong.
When people say that, I just say, you know, that's what they're trained in. I mean, of course they should want to learn more and find better options, but I mean, they're taught in pharmaceuticals. That's exactly what they're taught, is just like, this is what's wrong. This is the medicine you give them. Unfortunately.
They say the doctor said. I don't care what your doctor said. You're here. Even if, well, doc, I got a ton of relief from my birth control. Okay, stop taking it. Stop taking it. What happens? You're right back to where you were before. You're just as sick as before. That's why if you look at my book, I use the example of fire department and carpenter. Medicine's the fire department. They try to put out fires. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't. But your burnt up house is still there and it's continued to rot. You need doctors that know how to test for a house, what it needs, and how to rebuild it that way. So if you look at, for example, a young cyclic girl, before I have a 15, a 12, a 9, and a 5-year-old daughter. When my daughters hit 10 years old, I've already done testing for them before that, but I start testing their hormones at 10 years old to make sure that the transition in from going to a young lady to a cyclic young lady to a young woman is actually beautiful, because those hormone levels are supposed to come up properly. And if there are deficiencies or if there's excesses that way, you're going to have PMS, premenstrual syndrome. I always ask women, I said, is PMS normal? They say, yeah. I said, no, it's not. It's common. Don't confuse common with normal.
Yes.
We've accepted common as normal. When a young lady's cramping or bloating or crying because of her cycle, they're like, well, okay. I'm like, no. We've become numb to suffering young ladies.
Yes.
That just blows my mind. That's setting them up for so many healthcare problems later in life. But our current level of thinking, your OB, your endocrinologist, all these guys and women that think that they have the realm on female care is barbaric. And then we're going to give them endocrine disruptors that actually create cancer and infertility. And I'm the crazy doctor? Yes. They're a bunch of morons. Do you understand?
Yes. Girl. You know, I've never had a PMS cramp in my life. So I feel so bad for women that find that that's their normal. And they're like, oh, you know, it just takes me out of work for like a day. And I take Midol and all these things. And I'm like, how? No, why do you accept that? Why is that your normal?
Well, it's accepted because our current system to take care of young ladies or 20-year-olds or 30-year-olds or 40-year-olds is really barbaric. It's really horrible. Do you say? And they've said, well, it's not that bad. It's just cramping. No. That's like saying that vaginal dryness is normal for menopause. It's not normal. She's sick. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. It's a hormone deficiency. There's not enough estrogens gained to the vaginal lining that way. That's why sex is painful. That's why, for example, it hurts. That's why it's sore. That's why you get vaginal yeast infections on a regular basis that way. That's not normal. Don't confuse common things that women go through as normal.
Yes.
But our current healthcare system allows it that way.
Yes. So what can we do? What can women do during menopause to help kind of alleviate the symptoms and get their hormones just kind of back on track and feeling good?
Number one, so it doesn't matter what age you are, okay? So what happens is this. If you can get this concept, ladies, across on this, even with men, and men are affected less by it, obviously, and stuff, because once again, they will destroy their whole hormonal system by sugar. So if you have a husband that has testosterone problems, guess what? You better start getting his sugar looked at, because that's where his major problem is. I'm not saying it's the only one, but you're looking at generalities that way. Sorry, guys. Women, here's what happens. You have to start, number one, addressing all your stressors, okay? Now, once again, how does that start? I always tell people, if you look at the book, there's 3 ways. Trauma, toxins, and thoughts. 3 T's, okay? Once again, if you actually have any physical trauma to your body, guess what? It's a physical stressor. If you smash your finger, your whole hormonal system changes. Why? There is a physical stressor. That's the purpose of a chiropractor, to take care of the physical stresses. Now, toxins, another T. You can eat toxins on a regular basis, okay? Those things, for example, are inflammatory and affect your body. It puts you into a state of fight or flight. It drains your hormones. It throws them off. That's why people say, well, doc, everything is okay in moderation. Any person that says that, especially your grandma, is a moron.
Yes.
There's no, here, I have defined moderation. You're going to love this. All clinical nutritionists love my definition of moderation. Moderation is nothing more than your emotional justification to want to eat something wrong. It's emotional. Food is emotional. Food is by far the most emotional thing we do. Don't believe me, guys say, no, it's sex. Nah, that's not true. Because if I take a couple and I say, listen, I'll take a couple and say, listen, you two avoid sex for a week. The guy's kind of mad. The woman's just fine. Okay. And then What happens is if I actually tell them both to fast for a week, they both hate me. Do you know what I'm saying? Food is the most emotional thing that we do. So when you start talking foods, they create these emotional sayings like everything is okay in moderation. No, it's not. You're a freaking moron for saying that. Well, my grandma said it. Then your grandma's a moron. Do you understand? The reason why you bring it up because grandma always said it that way.
It doesn't change a food being inflammatory to you or not, whether you eat it in a small amount or a large amount.
Here, I'm allergic to eggs. Give me in moderation. I couldn't do this podcast. You know why? I would be dead. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like your body doesn't know moderation. It knows it's good or inflammatory. That's it. And the inflammatory process now drains your hormones. So here's what happens though is this, and here's what surprises me. People don't get tested what they're allergic to. And everybody has some form of allergies that way. Okay? That's why they gotta get tested. Get a food test done. You know what I'm saying? It's so simple. You don't need a doctor to get a food test done. You don't. Yeah. You can get them online. They're fantastic. Yeah. It's simple. Get your blood drawn. It's simple. It's easy. It's like I get mine tested every single year. So do my daughter. See, my daughters have had them done since they were 1 year old because when they're breastfed all the way till they're 1 year old. And then we started to introduce foods after 1 year old. One of my children didn't even get food till 18 months old. And that's when we did our test that way. But my kids got tested before they got food. Why? Because I didn't want them to do anything inflammatory since the day that they were born. Okay? So get that done. Third of all, if you look at the mental stress, ladies, I'm not joking to you. I'm not joking. You can eat good. You can get adjusted. You can fix trauma. You can get a food test. You can do all these things. If you, for example, do not get your mental stress under control, guess what happens? It's very devastating. It will drain your hormones faster than anything that way. It will destroy your life. See, one thing is this. Progesterone is directly connected to cortisol. Progesterone. So when you stress out, you actually deplete your progesterone, and now your estrogens, everything go crazy. And it's why there's so much breast cancer today. And here's what happens. And mental stress hits your cortisol faster than anything that way. So you got to be very careful about your mental stress. See, here's one thing I want you to think about. If you look at a guy, testosterone is not connected to cortisol. It's why a guy can stress out all day, have a horrible day, eat horrible, and at night he still wants to have sex. Do you see him? A woman has mental stress. Guess what happens? Sex drive is what? Gone. See? And then men go, wait, I'm fine. Why don't you have sex drive like me? Because they're not you. Men and women are very different no matter what the Democrats say out there.
I feel like that's the one thing, you know, like you said, people can eat good, they can make changes, they can take supplements and exercise. Yep. Mental stress is one of the hardest things to actually implement to actually change and make it better.
Well, here's what happens. I'm gonna show you something of how actually women are very great at this. And I've been doing this clinically for 20 years. See, the cool thing is this. I'm not a speaker. I don't give a care if anybody ever buys my book. I don't give a crap about it. You know what? Because I'm a practitioner. I've been changing lives for 20 years. We have offices all over the country. We're actually going international for clinical care. But here's what happens. I found out with women in 20 years. Just by letting women know, when you test them and you see their levels for mental stress are extremely high. And I've sat down from women. And Jerome, I can honestly tell you, and this is not a joke, men dominate why women are stressed out so much. Dominate. Not their kids, not their stuff, even though you see it talk about kids are a second stressor. Weight is a third stressor for women that way. But men, to the point where I've had women that were abused physically, which I even can't report legally, which is ridiculous, okay? So then women actually do this though. But just by women showing evidence that mental stress is actually killing them, they actually, once they know, they're better with it, even though I can't get them to divorce their husband. Do you follow me in that?
Yeah.
See, knowing it gives a woman the opportunity to change that. But when they don't know or never told by a doctor, see how I speak, women are going, doc, you make so much sense. But my doctor said, yeah, your doctor's led you down the wrong path. Do you understand? Just because he said it for a long period of time and we have a whole system that speaks the same thing, and I come along and say, listen, I have to say, listen, people say, doc, well, I disagree with you. Good, how are we doing for healthcare? We are sick. And we have more money, more research, more doctors, more hospitals, more technology ever in history, and women continue to get sicker. Breast cancer is going up like crazy. Yeah. 1 out of 7 women right now. When I started practice 20 years ago, it was 1 out of 10. Yeah. 20 years from now, we're sitting here, it's going to be 1 out of 3. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because their thinking's different. So by giving women the testing that shows that they're doing that way, they look and go, I have to get this under control. I do. And so then we can show them things. Now, Durham, are there things, it's why today, a lot of people don't realize this. Now, let me make this blanket statement. I hate smoking. I think smoking is devastating. Secondhand smoke, primary smoke, please don't do it. It'll kill you.
Mm-hmm.
But marijuana, by far, edibly, I know why it's even smoked so much. It reduces stress in people so much, and it can't hurt you. The only thing that hurts you in marijuana is you smoking it. Edible marijuana, guess what? Go for it. It'll reduce stress faster. That's why people do it. You know what I'm saying? But there are other things because people have stigma about marijuana and stuff like that. Remember, I've never smoked marijuana. I think it's horrible. I don't ever smoke it, but eat it all the time if you want to. I'm a fan for people to do it that way.
Yes.
And so here's what happens. But there's other medicinal herbs, California poppy, kava, things like that, that, for example, do a wonderful job of bringing that stress down. But remember, that's still a Band-Aid.
Yes.
That's still a Band-Aid. See, so I'm a huge fan of medicinal herbs. I use them clinically all the time. California poppy is probably one of the most sold things. Some form of CBD oil, usually from hemp, because it's legal in all 50 states. But here's what happens is this. But those, for example, help the body calm the stress down, but you got to find those stressors first. So yes, I can give you every medicinal thing from CBD to California poppy to kava, depending on where your stress is coming from. Because if you're having a lot of mental stress, actually what you want to do is you want to use kava. If you're actually having pain, inflammation, and actually just some chronic stress that way, use California poppy. If you just want to knock yourself out and actually sleep really well, go get marijuana oil or a brownie. Gluten-free and no processed sugar though. Okay?
I love it.
You see what I'm saying? And so I know joking people, when I talk about marijuana, people all get all uppity about it. I said, listen, the only reason why marijuana is illegal is because, once again, it's actually a great clinical form of treatment, even for cancer that way. Do you understand? It's like, and you could reduce a massive amount of opiate use and all things like that from there. So pharmaceutical wise, it's actually a detriment to billions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? People say, doc, but and so it's a political thing. It's really not a healthcare thing. It's all about politics and stuff. But those things, so then now you look and say, doc, well, how can I adapt to stress? Well, once again, there's great things to adapt to stress that way, even through the process. You got ashwagandha, you got other things like that. But here's what happens this. I don't recommend any of those until a person's had their testing done. See, that's where the natural world fails. Natural world goes right to the overall clinical thing, say natural things that can reduce stress. Yeah, but there's 100 different things.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's neurological, if it's adrenal, or if it's ovarian, stuff like that. And what they do is, because they have no clinical picture, they take a ton of stuff. And the next thing you know, women are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on natural things and getting a little bit of relief when they could have spent some money on a test and knew exactly what their body needed.
Yes. I feel the biggest thing that stops people is like the test, like the amount, the price of it. Yep. And they're like, I don't know. I don't want to spend like $400 on a test, but I'm like, that you cannot waste money on so many other things. Like you said, supplements wise,
yep,
and get the targeted therapy for you.
Yeah. I always said they don't want to spend $400 on a test, but they have a flat screen TV. Stop your complaining.
I love your attitude so much.
Well, see, it's
true though.
That's why people think I'm mean. I don't care. Do you know why? You know what happens? Because every day for 20 years, I sit across women that are crying, would pay anything to have a baby, would have anything not to have cancer, breast cancer at 35 years old. So I don't give a care if women like what I have to say. You know why? Because I'm going to fight for women to actually not get bad information. And for women that don't want to make changes, cool. Enjoy the healthcare. Enjoy everything you're going through like every other woman. Be sick, fat, unhealthy, infertile, all these things. And then what happens when you're finally sick enough, you don't care about your flat screen TV and your Apple phone and all your apps that you pay for, and you won't be worrying about a $300 test. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the part I don't care. I really don't. So it's like, so that's why it's like going, listen, I'm going to fight for women's rights to actually know what they need to know and actually get what they need to get, but still their choice. It's not mine. You see, my wife and my girls don't go through. My 15-year-old daughter who now got her cycle doesn't know what PMS is. She's actually vibrant, healthy, run around, amazing athlete, doing things that way, not sick, not skipping her cycle, having her period normally, all stuff like that this way. We've done it clinically now. We're growing all over international that way. Why? Because women are going in the wrong direction. Infertility alone is at an all-time high. Yes. Women are spending $20,000 for one IVF treatment. Don't tell me you can't afford a $300 test. Don't tell me you can't spend a couple $1,000s on yourself when you're going to pee away more money on Starbucks and stupid stuff.
Yes. I appreciate you so much for coming on, Dr. Flynn. Amazing. I know many women I feel empowered, and I don't even have PMS, but I'm like, let's do this. Can you let our listeners know where they can find you, where you're at on social media, website?
Yeah. I have to tell you this because it's kind of funny. I've been doing this, like I said, for 20 years, and about 7 years ago, no joke, 3 women and new patients in the same week came in and they said, listen, doc, they said, listen, my friend said, we want to see the Hormone Whisperer. I'm like, what? That was kind of a cool, I got nicknamed the Hormone Whisperer 7 years ago. So you can go to my Facebook page where I do a ton of stuff. And here's what happens. Let me say this because I'm very proud about this. Every one of my videos, every one of my stuff, I don't sell a darn thing. How can I sell anything? You say, Doc, what about CBD oil? How can I sell it? I don't know if you need it. You need to get tested first. So I put out the best clinical information on the planet. You can go to Dr. Patrick Flynn, the Hormone Whisperer on Facebook page. Also, YouTube. Also, here's what happens. Our clinics, thewellnesswayclinics.com. Thewellnesswayclinics.com. Even if you Google search Wellness Way, it's going to come up because we are so searched and dominated on the internet because, once again, we have nothing to sell you. We don't. See, the whole theme of everything this way is each woman is an individual. Get tested properly, and then that will dictate what you need to do. And the reason why our clinics have been so busy, because no doctors think like us. So therefore, they do search out a doctor for us because, once again, women just want guidance. And they get good guidance. Once again, they'll search out a good doctor that knows how to do it that way. So, but the number one thing that people see me on, obviously, is Dr. Patrick Flynn, the Hormone Whisperer. If you type it in Facebook that way, follow me. And here's what happens. I give a ton of stuff away. Last Saturday, I gave away a hormone test. I give books away for free because I don't want to sell anybody anything. I want people to understand this information. And every natural practitioner is, okay, here's what's up, and here's my magic 1995 supplement that will change your life forever. How stupid is that? That's like saying every woman is the same and every woman is stressed out by the same thing. And that's why medical, natural, integrative, functional medicine will always fail everybody because, once again, the thinking is not done right. And that's what I'm trying to do in this podcast. I hope I got you and your listeners to think just a little bit differently because then I've accomplished what I'm doing all over the world.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.